clean money campaign, Trent Lang.
Are we ready to get big secret money out of politics? Is it going to happen with this particular Congress?
Yes!
No. I have more confidence in Speaker Ryan than I do on this particular issue.
In California!
Is it going to happen here in California? Yes, it is. And we are going to hear from the legislators who are leading that here in just a moment. So you're going to hear from me in details about the details of the bill, but none of this happens without our legislative leaders, our legislative champions, actually. And we are very, very fortunate here. Great. Assemblymember Freeman is just going to thank you very much for joining, one of our co-authors. So we're going to hear from Assemblymember Freeman. But first, we are going to hear from somebody that has been truly a champion on this issue. And actually, I'm going to run over here and just pick something up real quick. So, there has been no harder fighter that I've ever seen for a campaign finance reform bill than our champion in the legislature, Assemblymember Jimmy Gomez, as an author of the California Disclosure. This is a hard fight. Not everybody in Sacramento that has power is eager to see their names displayed on all those political ads. So we have a lot to push for. But last year, he fought. He fought hard, he fought long, he fought well, he fought smart, and he fought with us. So we do a clean money scorecard every 2 years where we give actual scores to the votes of assembly members and senators, how they vote on clean money bills. And then we give bonuses when they provide leadership on bills, especially when they author a crucial key bill like the California Disclose Act. And I'm very happy to say that Assemblymember Jimmy Gomez was the highest scoring clean money champion in the legislature. We've got this fabulous award here, clean money champion. We had several clean money champions in the legislature, but none scored higher than Jimmy because of all of his incredible leadership. Okay, and without further ado, Assemblymember Jimmy Gomez, author of AB 14, the California Disclose Act.
Thank you so much, Trent. First, it's my honor to be here just because, one of the things when I first got elected, I would say is that elected officials come and go, but the community remains. And our job is to empower the community to be their best advocates, to push the hard issues, to take on the hardest battles that elected officials often don't want to take on at first. And you see that inspiration in so many different things, everything from revitalizing the LA River. First started with people who thought that it wasn't a river that divides, but a river that brings people together. You see this over and over and over again, right? That is what the essence of democracy is about, is to empower the people. And I want to say that on this issue is no different. It was all of you who were the first ones to push regarding the disclosure of money in campaigns. It was Trent and it was all of you. And we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the activists that came before us and the activists that are to come after us. So let's give Trent and all of you a round of applause. This is and in the history of campaign disclosure, the disclosure laws are not very old. The first ones actually were passed in the 1970s. And before that, money in politics was more rampant then than it is now. and there was no limits, and it was actually delivered sometimes, if you hear the stories, it was delivered in brown paper bags, right? By the people that they called the bag men. They would deliver the money, and nobody would see into the bag what was actually being delivered. So hundreds of thousands of dollars were being delivered to help influence campaigns. And then the public got together in the same kind of outrage and push for campaign disclosure to make sure that there is limits and disclosure so that the people can tell who is paying for what and who is behind the different campaigns and the different candidates. And I believe that is the best way we need to go. And we kept on doing that over and over and over, with McCain-Feingold to actually put limits on soft money for the first time ever. But once, and we all know what happened, the Citizens United basically struck down McCain-Feingold, and once again, we're back into the 1960s and 70s where you can't see into that brown paper bag. You can't see who's actually paying for the campaigns. And that in itself starts to undermine our democracy. So when you see an ad that says an independent expenditure or a ballot measure ad, and it says that Californians for a clean environment, but it's actually paid by the oil companies, right? That they're actually being deceived. The voters are being deceived about who is supplying and supporting campaigns. So we need to go back into this fight and make sure we pass the DISCLOSE Act. And the DISCLOSE Act is crucial when it comes to the time after the Citizens United. And of course, if we can win back the White House, we should try to put a Supreme Court that will overturn Citizens United once and for all and pass laws at the federal level. So we still have some fights, but this is where we're at. We're leading the way here in California. Last year, AB 700 came one vote short. It never actually, no prior bill had ever actually passed, the disclosure bill had passed both houses, or the one house, made it to the second house, passed the policy committee, the appropriations, and then made it to the floor. And we were one vote short. All the Democrats went up, and then the Republicans called a special caucus to lock down every single Republican senator in the Senate in order to prevent this bill from getting passed. Because once we would have passed it, it would have happened. And I want to actually point out Senator Ben Allen, who's here, who was actually with me trying to get that last final vote. And we took that fight to 12 midnight of the last day of session, to the last minute. And we were that close. But we're going to actually do it this year. We have a Democratic supermajority in the Assembly, a Democratic supermajority in the Senate, and now we have to hold people accountable to make sure that they vote for AB 14. Right? And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. You know, there's so many ways to kill a bill that you'd be surprised. An amendment to a bill that adds a co-author can kill it if it's done in a way that messes up the timeline on a bill, right? So you have to watch every single angle and every single play that's going on. You have to not only watch the Republicans, but you also have to watch the Democrats. I love my people, but sometimes the pressure is too much, and we have to help them be brave and courageous so that they can side with all of you and our democracy. And that's what you're going to do. And that's why it's so important to have a rally here to kick off this campaign in order for you to understand, to send the message that everybody will be held accountable to vote yes on AB 14 and disclose the dark money in politics once and for all. So we're the first. We're a state of firsts here. We passed the first state to pass paid family leave, paid 6 days, $15 minimum wage. And imagine if we will be the first state to pass the DISCLOSE Act to shed light on dark money in politics. And that's what you're going to do. And because I want to make sure that this bill actually happens, even if there's a little election, I can't talk about it, but if it happens, I want to make sure that I'm here to pass this bill as my last final act as an assembly member. So we're adding an urgency clause to the bill so that we can pass it at a moment's notice and it can take effect immediately. And that is my promise to you, is to try to get this passed while I'm still here, so I can make sure that we rally the troops and make sure that this is the last bill I ever passed in the legislature. So with your help, we can get that done. And I want to say thank you. And I know we are in a different period of time, but I want to go back to the time of 2008 when Hope Spring Eternal, right? Hope Spring Eternal, and the fight was still there. So I'm going to go back to the chant of 2008. Fired up?
Ready to go!
Fired up?
Ready to go!
Fired up?
Ready to go!
Thank you so much.
Are we lucky to have an author that will fight as strong as he did last year and is going to fight just as strong as he did this year? We are. He was a true champion last year, and he's going to be a true champion, and he's a true champion this year. So, but as we all know, the legislature has two houses. One assembly member, no matter how amazing of a job he does, can't do it all for a bill that's as important and big and powerful as the California DISCLOSE Act. And the California Clean Money Campaign supports other bills also. We work for public financing of campaigns so that politicians don't have to spend all their time fundraising. Do we think that we need public financing campaigns someday? Yes, we do. The next person I'm going to bring up is also a clean money champion. Senator Ben Allen was the author of SB 1107, a very important bill that California Clean Money Campaign co-sponsored with our friends at California Common Cause, and was supported by a large number of groups, many of them in this room right now, to repeal that ban on public financing. That required a 2/3 vote, and we managed, but it meant we actually had to get some Republicans to vote for it, and with Senator Allen's leadership, we got it. How about overturning Citizens United? SB 254, the Overturn Citizens United Act, also authored by Senator Ben Allen, put Prop 59 on the ballot, and it passed California. For the 8,700 last
issue on your incredible self-discipline. My mom and dad came to join this rally. While my dad's here, my mom just couldn't help herself but be torn away from this incredible thrift outlet next door. And I'm sure I'll be getting some new socks as a result of my participation in today's event. So your self-discipline is super impressive. I also want to just give a special shout out to Jimmy. There's a great photograph of the two of us sitting on the floor of the Senate, literally sitting, I think 11:45 at night, bleary-eyed with our phones, trying to coordinate the efforts. Jimmy and Mark Levine and I, we were just working down to the wire to try to get the DISCLOSE Act through last year, and unfortunately we just came one vote short. But we were a little band of brothers, and there was some sisters involved too, trying to fight to make this thing happen. And I just think that now with a couple of the changes that have happened, with a 2/3 majority in both houses, we've got a moment to get this thing through, and it would be an incredible final legacy for you to get this thing passed and then go off to represent us in Congress. So it's a big thanks to you. So, obviously, incredible shout out to Trent Lang. I mean, this guy is just such a champion. He has an amazing passion, an amazing determination, and he has also got an amazing email list that allows him to, and this is something that's very, very important, because I come from an area that is very, pretty progressive, right? I'm from Santa Monica, the People's Republic. And everybody in Santa Monica is all on board, a lot of these great progressive causes. But the fact of the matter is that our colleagues who represent the Central Valley or other parts of the state, as interested as they are in coming to Santa Monica every once in a while and having dinner at Fig, they're simply not that interested from hearing from constituents from my neck of the woods when ultimately it's the people in their districts who get to decide whether they stay in office or not. And so it's the geographic spread, the geographic intensity of the California Clean Money Campaign and all the partner organizations that are represented here that are ultimately so important. Transability to churn out phone calls in districts all over the state, including rural areas, including suburban areas, including parts of the Central Valley, is so valuable in getting good bills passed through the legislature, and I think it will prove very valuable in getting AB 14 passed this year. So this was an incredibly important bill. We are so determined to make this happen finally. You know, you've got all these Orwellian names like Californians from Mom and Apple Pie. They're showing up in people's doors, and no one has any idea who the hell's paying for them. And the time has come to give our voters the opportunity to evaluate who actually is flooding their mailboxes with all this messaging, so that they can have a better understanding and they can take that into account when they're making their voting decisions. We've also got another companion bill that we're working together, SB 651, which is our initiative petition Disclose Act, which looks at the fact that you've got all these folks hanging outside of Whole Foods and Giant and every other store under the sun, getting your signatures. And of course, you don't know who's paying them to do it. There's always, almost always, somebody paying them to collect those signatures. And you're oftentimes signing an initiative that looks great on its head, and then you find out later that it was actually put on the ballot by some particular special interest. And so we want to make sure that the top 3 donors to those petition drive campaigns also need to be disclosed right there on the petition when people are making their signing, so they can know what they're signing themselves onto when they sign those petitions. And I think that's an important part of the process. I also want to thank the California Clean Money Campaign and Common Cause for their incredibly hard work with us on 1107, SB 1107. I also want to give a special shout out to my friend Sandra Fluke, who we actually ran against each other for this seat, and it was a hard-fought race. I have a tremendous amount of respect for her. And we then became absolute partners in crime on getting this SB 1107 passed together, which basically makes it so that the state and localities can put in place public financing for campaigns, an important reform that we all know we need to try to scale, both statewide and nationally. And Sandra was right there with me. We were having phone calls all the time trying to figure out ways to convince some of our colleagues. We ultimately were able to get a couple of Republicans to come on board in both houses to vote for this thing, and we were able to get it through, and ultimately it's going to be a very important step in the right direction in trying to scale public financing of campaigns. And now we can all work together to convince our local county governments, to convince our city governments to provide public financing for campaigns. And so that's a very important reform, and let's work together on trying to make that happen in our localities and build upon that. And then finally, the California Clean Money Campaign and everyone here worked so hard to try to get Citizens United on the ballot. That was SB 254. It turned into Prop 59. We were able to get it passed. Unfortunately, I think we were all really hoping that it would provide an important milestone for a new progressive Supreme Court to turn to and draw upon and allude to in that decision that we were all looking forward to, that would overturn the Citizens United decision. Now, unfortunately, the country's taken on a darker turn since then. But we are so hopeful that we have to keep fighting, because I'll tell you, ever since the Citizens United ruling was issued, spending by super PACs funded by organizations with unlimited contribution limits has now reached $1 billion since that decision came down. And by the way, more than $600 million of that is just from less than 200 donors and their spouses. So it's a minuscule portion of our population, of our great American population, that is spending an extraordinary amount of dark money in our process, and we've got to keep that fight going. That's why we're here today. That's why we're going to work so hard to get the Disclose Act back. Thank you for your activism. Thank you for your energy.
This is the kind of leadership that we need, that Assemblymember Gomez is providing on AB 14, and Senator Allen is providing on SB 651, and they are working together on those bills also. But we also need the leadership of others, because there are 80 Assembly members and there are 40 senators And I am very, very happy to be able to say that AB 14 has a new joint author joining Assemblymember Gomez and Assemblymember Mark Levine as author of AB 14, Assemblymember Sharon Quirk Silva.
We are here in California, a beautiful day, and yet we're here talking about an important topic, and that just says who you are and why we're here. I'm from Orange County, where it is not so easy to get out information, and I represent the 65th District, which is North Orange County, all of Fullerton, West Anaheim, Buena Park, Stanton, La Palmyra, and Cypress. And for some of you who've been watching closely, I was a candidate that won the assembly race in 2012, lost in 2014, and have come back to create a supermajority here in 2016. And with that supermajority, we're going to do the work that we need to do. And the work that we need to do is first, as we see here, shine a light on where the money that comes that puts in millions of dollars of campaign funds against somebody like me. And many times people will say, well, how much money did you have to raise? I started local politics in 2004, before you had really even very much social media, before you had ads, and even in Fullerton to run a local campaign in 2004, I raised about $50,000. No developer money, no big money from police or fire or from many moms. And as a teacher of 31 years, it was really a lot of women. So women out there, we can run campaigns, we can run clean campaigns, and we can create a movement. But it gets harder and harder. So just to come back and work on both of these campaigns for state assembly, we were well over $1 million. Some people ask me, well, where did all those IEs come from? Independent expenditures. And exactly, that's a great question. Where did they come from? Because it's not always clear when we look at the money trail. We know a big one is the Jobs PAC. They put money in. We might say, some of them might say to me, well, we supported you. They may support me, and then they turn around and put money into a different PAC. So as we look at taking back our government, making sure it's transparent and accountable, this is the exact type of legislation we need. This is the time to get it done. I know we're going to be able to move it, but it's going to take support, as was noted, from all across California, from the orange counties to San Diego to up north. I think we're going to be able to do that, but just one bit of hope in kind of a dismal November 8th in Fullerton, which is the home of Congress member Ed Royce. We won 5 seats in Fullerton. And when I say we won, it's team on 2 school board members who we won, who we believe have the values that are going to be transparent, accountable, stand up for public education. And then we won the supermajority with my seat, but also in the city of Fullerton, on the Senate side, we won the other seat there with Josh Newman being the senator that took that over 2/3. So this kind of urban, suburban town of Fullerton in the haven of conservatism, we won 5 seats. My husband also won a seat on the Fullerton City Council. So don't discount Orange County, because over and over we have been the vote to deliver on those critical votes. So this will continue, and as we work together, we're going to be able to move legislation like this. And thank you to my colleagues here for their work and support. Jimmy Gomez is not only my seatmate, but we're joint authors on this. Thank you so much.
And now I would also like to introduce one of our newest co-authors of AB 14, Assemblymember Laura Friedman.
Good afternoon. So I am really honored to be up here today, and so pleased to be sharing the stage with some of my heroes, Jimmy Gomez and Ben Allen, and all the other co-authors of this bill. I've been watching them fight for this for years now, and to be able to be a small part of it is such an honor. So thank you for allowing me to co-author this bill. I have a question for all of you. My question is, can we have too much transparency?
No.
Can we have too much sunshine in politics?
No.
No. But there are people who say yes. There are groups who say yes. Who are those people? Large corporate interests say yes. We don't want too much transparency. We don't want too much sunshine. Fascists say yes. Dictators say yes. People that are on the right side of issues, people who are working in politics because they care about their community, you know what? They want voters to be educated. If voters don't agree with them, that's fine. Most of them want the electorate to know what their issues are. They want the electorate to know what they stand for. They want the electorate to know what their values are. But dictators and large corporate interests, they do not. They want too often to pull the wool over people's eyes, to give you something that may sound great, the Group for Truth, Justice, and the American Way. But try digging below those pretty words sometimes and you will find a whole lot of nothing, a whole lot of mystery. And that's what we need to get more out of politics, because democracy only works if there is transparency. Your vote only matters if you know what you're voting for. I'm a voter too, and I want easier access to know who's behind ballot measures, who's behind candidates, and why, and what do those candidates believe. And AB 14 is going to go a long way in doing that. I don't know about you, but when I watch television and I see a political ad, I cannot see who's paying for it. Not on my television. I think I'd have to be at an IMAX theater to be able to read those disclosures. This bill will change that. Looking at a flyer that comes in your mailbox, it should be more obvious to you as a voter who's behind that. Then you can make a decision. Maybe you'll still vote for it, but you have every right to know who's supporting a particular measure and who's supporting candidates. We are at an unprecedented time in this country, unfortunately. We're at a time where ordinary people right now are in a very existential fight for their rights against very large corporate interests and very large political interests. And what this bill does is it takes a step towards empowering the people that should be empowered, which is the ordinary people, ordinary Americans, to make those decisions. We have to fight every day and claw back things like Citizen United that say corporations have all the rights of people, but none of the responsibilities. Well, part of that responsibility should always be being transparent and having disclosure, and that's what AB 14 starts to do. And I will be there, and I guarantee to be there with my colleagues to make those phone calls and to fight, because this is that important. And I will just mention before I leave a small bill that I hope they will consider a companion bill, which is AB 1458 that we've just introduced, that will require all campaigns to have on the front page of their website a direct link to their contribution forms, so that voters won't have to try to find their ways around the internet, struggle to figure out which page and where they find that information. You should be able to have something right on that website that says, click here to see who's funding me. And you click it and you see it. So I hope that you'll all also help me to get that passed. And I look forward to working with each and every one of you for the rights of ordinary Americans. Thank you.
Very much. We have a good group of champions here, or not, or what? And that's exactly what we need. Our next champion, he's new to the Senate, but he's taking over the all-powerful Senate Elections Committee, which Senator Allen so ably chaired the last couple years. We are very happy to have Senator Henry Stern here. He's the newest principal co-author of AB 14. Come on up, Senator Stern. Thank you.
Hey, there's very little I can add to the words that have already been spoken, because you have people here who have been fighting to get this bill to become a law for years and years before I even got here. But the real people who've been fighting is you. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that the only reason this bill still has any legs, that this fight didn't just die and be swept under the rug like so many other battles we have in our politics, is because the grassroots of the state of California, are a ferocious force of progress. And that's what you all have been. That's the only accountability there is right now in our politics, because it's easy to hide in Sacramento. I've been going into this body with eyes wide open, having worked there for a few years for someone like Fran Pavley, who was never afraid of going into a fight with a big corporation. She sort of seemed to have a penchant for that. Her compass kind of drove her to these lonely battles where there's no billionaires funding it. It's just you. And it's you, and it's your decency, and it's the power of your ideas. And that, to me, is the currency of what's driving the Clean Money campaign, what drives the work that Trent and the folks at Common Cause do, what drives the work that all the progressive Dem clubs throughout this region and action items of, action committees of all sorts, is you pick up that phone, and that's what strikes a little fear into our hearts. When enough people call, right, that's what puts the politician on edge. And you need to hold on to that power, because that's what will levelize this playing field ultimately. We can only do so much as a state. This bill is completely necessary, but it is not sufficient, right? It is a huge step forward in transparency, but it is not going to actually shut off the flow of the money. And that's the bigger fight that we're all a part of here. Let's win this battle, but let's know that this is part of a bigger war to take back our democracy from those with the biggest checkbooks. And that's the battle I'm going to be on with you guys and the rest of these incredible leaders here today till my final moment in elected office. That's the solution to our healthcare crisis. That's the solution to the climate change crisis. That's the solution to women's health access and immigration issues and criminal justice reform, right? It all starts right here, and in those phone calls and those meetings that you all do in your backyards that you're not being paid for, that there's no big incentive, but you're doing it because you're a true Californian, you're a committed citizen, and that's the only way we're going to make progress in this country. So thank you for pushing us to make change. That's the path to progress. Thank you.
Later on in this program, we're going to talk about all of your opportunity to not only see Assemblymember Gomez again, but Senator Stern in the Senate Elections Committee when the bill comes around to it. So get ready. And lastly, but definitely not least, because every bill needs an enforcer. Every bill needs somebody that's going to whip Democrats into shape and make sure that they follow along. And I am very happy today to be able to mention this. Assemblymember Miguel Santiago, as the Assembly Majority Whip, he made sure that, along with Assemblymember Gomez and everybody else and all of you, that every single Democrat voted yes on the DISCLOSE Act last year. He even somehow helped make sure, along with the rest of you, that 9 Republicans voted yes on the DISCLOSE Act. I'm not sure exactly how he pulled that off as the Democratic Majority Whip, but that shows how good a whip he is. Assemblymember Miguel Santiago, and he also brought 3 of his the newest DISCLOSE Act supporters, I see.
Wow. It is awesome to see people from all over Los Angeles here today. Yeah, I gotta tell you. And thank you, Trent, for all the hard work, everybody on the Clean Money campaign, and every single activist who's here today. And Gabrielle too. But I gotta tell you, Jimmy Gomez was really the champion who helped put this together. Because it is absolutely easy to stand in front of a room of progressives and say that you support disclosure, and say that you support the Clean Money campaign. But when you're in office, it's not easy to do so, because these forces are powerful. So Jimmy Gomez, and I gotta tell you, Jimmy Gomez is a champion. Stand up, Jimmy. Stand up, Gomez. Credit goes where credit is due, and that brother's been putting up the fight. And I gotta tell you, yeah, we did bring Republicans on board last year, and we're gonna need everybody's help here to continue to do so. And look, we give credit where credit is due. But when Bernie Sanders talked about it last year, he was absolutely right. We're at a critical point in our democracy. We're at a critical point in our democracy where billionaires have not only bought our economy, but are now looking to buy government. And this is serious. And we give credit where credit is due. And you know that they're not buying government because they want child care. Nope. And they're not buying government because they want a cleaner environment. And they're not buying government because they want to raise the minimum wage. Nope. They're buying government because we now know what they want. They wanted a guy like Donald Trump who's going to roll back environmental protections, who's going to roll back the wins that we've made for working families, who's going to roll back all the protections that every consumer might have. So I got to tell you, this fight this year is more real than it's ever been. Because if California doesn't step up to protect its citizens, we have nowhere else in this nation that we can look to for any sort of progressive leadership. This is it. This is going to be ground zero. And she's saying, man, Dad, you talk too long. But that's how serious this is. Because if we don't step up here, and it's only a very, very small price that we're asking here, right? Very, very small. All we want is simple disclosure. All we want is a very simple disclosure to ensure that billionaires are not buying off government. And look, as a foundation to any democracy, you need an informed electorate. And that's why this bill is absolutely critical and more important than ever in our history that we get the Disclosure Act signed and that we begin to push back on the billionaires who attempt to roll over working families. And we're going to stand by you, Mr. Gomez, and we're going to ensure that this fight goes through. And last year, here's how this thing works. Once you get one or two Republicans to come on board, then everybody comes on board. But make no mistake about it. Getting the 2/3 is not easy. Not even easy with Democrats. Because you know once you get to 2/3, then you get to 60, then you get to a different number. It's kind of like a tough vote, right? Everybody wants to be 41, but no one's going to step up. Sorry, everybody wants to be 42 or 41, but no one's going to step up and be 40, 39, 38. So we need to press really, really hard. So if you live in an area where you're represented by a Democrat, you need to reach out to them right now and tell them that this is a critical bill. If you live in an area where there's a Republican representative, you need to reach out to all your neighbors, friends, family, and start hounding those phones. Pounding them, writing letters, catching them at meetings, catching them at events, and ask them who they want to protect. Their constituents or the billionaires behind them. And I'll tell you, and we've seen this over the last couple of years when people are sworn in. Some of us bring our families, our kids on the floor. We've had a couple of people who brought billionaires. The same billionaires who funded campaigns against us. Isn't that right? So when you guys take a look at it, and you can take a look at the old videos of us getting sworn in this last time and then the time before that, the wealthiest billionaires who are funding campaigns against progressive Democrats are on the assembly floor. Can you imagine that? They were on our assembly floor as private guests to some of those members who were elected by that money. That is one step too far in the corruption of our democracy. And we got to stand up and we got to fight back. So thank you for all the hard work that you're doing. And Gomez, seriously, we owe you one.
Political activists and politicians we have here today, and I would like you all to honor them and be honored with them, because I am going to take a photograph of you with all of them and with them with all of you. So here's how we're going to do it. It's going to go very quickly. I'm going to ask our speakers who just spoke, the politicians, to stand up over here with Trent, right in the front here. I'm going to ask all of you to stand up out of your seats, and I'm going to get up on this ladder and I'm going to take a picture really quick.
Flip it around.
Let me have the co-sponsors who I'm going to introduce in just a few minutes come around. But everybody stay right where you are.
You know, I just want to give another round of applause to some incredible leaders that we have up here. Thank you so much to our leaders in the state legislature, to Jimmy, to Ben, to Henry, to Laura. Thank you. And folks, I'm going to tell some tales out of school. Because we're here to get some work done, and so we need to be honest with each other about what the challenges are that we're facing on getting this passed, right? So I need you to know how brave some of these legislators are actually being. Because we like to think that all of the progressives stand together on these fights, right? Well, the reality is that in Sacramento, we actually have some Democrats that aren't with us on this issue. And we have some progressive organizations that aren't with us on this issue. Some folks who want to win at any cost, who believe that it's okay if we trample a little bit on democracy as long as we get to the right outcome on the election or the right outcome on the bill. And I respect what they're fighting for, but it matters how we get there. And if this moment that we're in as a country right now, with President Trump in the White House, and the attacks on our democracy at the federal level doesn't remind us of that, then I don't know what will. Because this is a moment when we truly have to stand up for our democracy, stand up for how we believe our government should work, and the fact that our government and our elected officials must be accountable to the people. And in California, we must lead the fight for that value. And we can't get there unless we have information, unless we have this kind of disclosure. We saw when President Trump came into office, one of the first things that happened was Twitter accounts came down, information came off websites. Information is power, and we have to have the information about who is paying for our elections. So I just want to salute Jimmy and Ben and all of the legislators who are here for having the commitment to our democracy and the bravery to stand up and fight for these values, even when they're not popular. And I want to also salute the advocacy organizations that are here and all of you who are part of that effort for fighting for those values. Because I've been in some rooms where I've said, but we're the Progressive Coalition, we have to support the DISCLOSE Act, and not everybody's there. So we have to, as a community, demand that fighting for our democracy is a core progressive value, just like fighting for immigrant communities, just like fighting for our environment, just like fighting for workers. Fighting for our democracy matters, because that's how everyone participates equally in our democracy. So thank you all. Thank you all for being a part of that fight. And I want to ask that when we get this passed, because we're getting it passed this year, that you take it one step further and you talk to your friends and your family and your neighbors, and you make sure that they look at the disclosure, at who's paying for what. Because if they don't look, if they don't think about it when they vote, then our fight won't have gotten us to the finish line. So this is just one chapter in the fight, and I look forward to being with it in that fight with all of you until we get ultimately to the strongest possible democracy we can have. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Okay, next up is CalPERS Deputy Political Director, Will Eli. Come on up, Will. There you go.
In 2010, the Supreme Court told us that infinite sums of special interest money are protected expressions of free speech. In 2012, at a state fair in Iowa, Mitt Romney told us that corporations are people. Well, my name is Will. That's Sandra. That's Laura. That's Ben. And we all keep asking the special interests to tell us their real names. With names like Americans for America, America for Americans, Putting America First, or Californians fill out apple pie or something. I learned way back in middle school that it's not very cool to pick your own nickname. And if California and the United States as a whole wishes to continue earning the title of democracy, then the influence of dark money over our politics has to stop. I'm here today on behalf of the California Public Interest Research Group. You may know us as CalPERG. Maybe you organized with us as a student. Perhaps we've interrupted one of your early dinners by knocking on your door. So join us. Sorry, not sorry, the millennials say. But for years, we've organized against special interests that have sought to raise our prescription drug prices, abuse antibiotics on factory farms, and have sought to pollute and warm our environment. And every time we push back, we find special interests pulling the strings backstage. And which is why it's so important that transparency and disclosure become instruments for voters, so we can lay bare those who are advocating for the public interest and those who are not. These are precarious times, and Californians deserve better. We are Californians, and we must continue to set the standard. That said, I cannot be more proud to stand alongside you all today, and the caliber of leadership just in front of us. Thank you to Trent Lang, Assembly Members Gomez, Quirk-Silver, and Friedman, and to Senator Allen and Senator Stern. That's my time, and I thank you for yours. Let's go organize.
Thank you, Will. That's fantastic. So one of our huge sponsors and co-sponsors in this group is Common Cause, and we thank them so much for their effort. My good friend Sylvia Moore, who's right over here. Sylvia, please stand up. I'm going to read a little something, if it's okay with all of you, because Sylvia has been fighting off a cold. She and I have been going to all of this city council offices in Los Angeles to try and get them to push for the 6-to-1 match. And I think she wore out for a little bit, so I'm going to read what Common Cause would like you guys to know about. Okay, so bear with me because I'm going to try and read this as quick as I can. But Common Cause proudly stands with the California Clean Money Campaign, Assembly Members Gomez, Levine, Quirk-Silva, Freeman, Santiago, and Senator Van Allen and Henry Stern, and this distinguished bipartisan coalition of government transparency advocates in supporting the California DISCLOSE Act, AB 14. Californians deserve to know who is truly funding the onslaught of political ads they see during election cycles so voters can make informed and sound decisions at the ballot box. California Common Cause believes in open, honest, and accountable government, as well as stopping the overwhelming flood of special interest money in our elections. To special interests who wish to oppose the DISCLOSE Act, Sylvia says, if you are confident that the ballot measure you are funding would protect and advance the interests of Californians and would be something Californians would support, then why not publicly stand behind your cause? Functioning democracy depends on a fully informed populace. Last year, we were so close to passing the DISCLOSE Act, and I'm confident we will finally win this year. It's time for the legislature to act, and let's shine a bright light on special interest money in California. And I'd also like to say that Sylvia would be happy to talk with you about an additional government bill, AB 1089, which was introduced this year by Assemblymember Kevin Mullen. It's really going to change a lot of things in terms of how bills are adopted, because I should say about how candidates get funded. So please talk with her about that as well when you get a chance. She just won't be talking very loud. So thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Common Cause. All right.
They're here even when they're not, when they can talk.
That's right. So now I'd like to bring up two more people. People demanding actions. Teresa Perrin. Come on up, Teresa.
All right, I'm representing People Demanding Action, which is a co-sponsor for today's event, but I'm also a member of Progressive Democrats of San Fernando Valley and North Valley Democratic Club, who got missed in the list earlier. Whoa! And they're also co-sponsoring. So People Demanding Action is a network to foment a grassroots movement to rebuild American democracy. And the California DISCLOSE Act would do just that. It would make it easier to know who you're voting for, who or what you are voting for by knowing what groups support their campaigns. The bill is instrumental in supporting democracy because voters will clearly be able to follow the money when seeing political campaign ads. And I really like Sandra's saying that we need to make sure that our relatives and friends actually do that. I'm especially proud of the bipartisan support that the bill has received as citizens realize the outsized influence of money in our politics and in deciding elections. And this should not be a partisan issue. And as the late Justice Antonin Scalia wrote, requiring people to stand up in public for their political acts fosters civic courage, without which democracy is doomed. And that's what the DISCLOSE Act does. I'd like to thank the Assemblymember Gomez for his fight for getting this bill passed, and the California Clean Money Campaign for educating people throughout the state about the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. And my apologies to Mr. Matthews and not mentioning the North Valley Democratic Club. I apologize. Sometimes the list just doesn't always get updated as we'd like. And finally, let me ask the California League of Conservation Voters, Mike Young, to come up and speak to us for a moment. Come on up, Mike.
I know it's been a long day and there have been a lot of speeches, so I'll cut mine a little short. I just want to say thank you so much to Jimmy Gomez, Ben Allen, Henry Stern, all these amazing leaders who've been working on this bill. I just want to tell you a quick story about how we actually make some of this stuff work. So the League of Conservation Voters has been working with our partners, progressive partners throughout the state, combating this very type of money that you're talking about. And we've heard about some of those PACs, and one of the amazing things that we do is we sunlight to voters, and we basically say, guess who's actually funding these PACs? This is how what we're doing, what we spend our money on right now, and saying, hey, guess who's actually funding groups like California for Jobs and a Strong Economy, and California, and Spirit of Democracy, and all these ridiculous, great-sounding names. In my district, we actually had something called the Senior Advocates League, which is almost entirely funded by Chevron. The only seniors who benefit from their PAC are the senior executives who work for Chevron. And that's just completely and utterly unacceptable. So these organizations have been working together with their allies, and you'd be surprised as to who some of them are. Obviously insurance companies, big pharma, real estate developers. But even this year, we saw some interesting allies, including, surprisingly, the Dentist PAC, who actually went after Henry Stern in his race. And people had no idea that they've been funneling money and working together and teaming up to defeat these guys. So by passing something like the DISCLOSE Act, we can do a lot of work to let people know who's really behind these campaigns, who's really fighting on behalf of the community, and who's actually fighting on behalf of giant corporations who want to steal our democracy and mislead voters time and time again. So thank you so much for all of you for working on this DISCLOSE Act. We're going to pass it this year, and I'm really excited about this training that's coming up in a couple hours. I hope you all can stay for it. We got to win this fight. It's incredibly important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Fantastic. This is such a great group of people. We're going to have Trent come up and give you some of the specifics about AB 14. We're going to do a very short question and answer. I'll run around with an additional microphone, and hopefully we'll get you guys right into a few more informational things that can really get this thing rolling. Thank you so much. Trent, come on up.
Thank you. Here, pass these out.
Okay.
Wayne's going to pass out a couple before-afters that I'm going to describe you what the DISCLOSE Act would actually do. The example idea, current ads, there was a perfect example, there was a Proposition 26 a few years ago that had major impacts on California by changing the law so that it took 2/3 vote to raise fees, even on polluters. Most people didn't hear about it, but it passed with $18 million worth of ads by a group called Stop Hidden Taxes. Stop Hidden Taxes. Who's for hidden taxes? I'm not for hidden taxes. Well, what the DISCLOSE Act would have shown when AB 14, once it passes, would show is that on a solid black background, on the bottom 1/3 of the screen, on separate lines so that nobody can miss them, the top funders of those Yes on 26 ads were not Stop Hidden Taxes. They were Chevron, Philip Morris, and Anheuser-Busch. Chevron, Philip Morris, and Anheuser-Busch. That passed with 52% of the vote. Do you think that maybe 2% of people might have changed their minds if they knew that Stop Hidden Taxes was really Chevron, Philip Morris, and Anheuser-Busch? Yeah. So we're talking not just transparency and disclosure here. We're talking about changing elections when people see who is behind them. So it has two key parts. You've heard them talk about all these different examples, no matter what you care about. The environment, healthcare, workers' rights, women's rights, immigrants' rights, it doesn't matter. They're all affected by propositions that have these. So it does, it has the change of the format, and it's also the first law anywhere in the country to stop corporations and wealthy interests from hiding behind layers of front groups. Because it actually requires that if somebody says, here's $1 million, I want you to give it to pass Prop 26 or to kill Prop 37, the Label GMO bill initiative that came a few years, or kill Prop 45 or kill Prop 61. These are all initiatives that many of you probably supported that were killed by big money interests. That money would be earmarked, have to be considered earmarked, and tracked and traced no matter how many layers of organizations it went through, and show up on the ads. That's no place else in the country does that. So they will not be able to hide on front groups. So those are the key aspects. Make that happen. TV ads, radio ads, print ads, billboards, the internet ads would have a little button that would say, who funds this ad? You click on that and you go to a place that would show those true funders too. So it would cover everything that you can think. So with that, we've talked about, I'm going to open up for 2 or 3 or 4 questions that anybody might have.
So if you have a question, please raise your hand. Okay? I'm going to come around, I'll hold the mic, and you stand up and ask your question. And please be concise.
Yeah, this is a little bit wonky, but a couple of years ago when the I think it was the Marriage Act and the Koch brothers and the money from outside. The Attorney General went after those groups trying to find out where the money went from, and they went down the rabbit hole. And he finally couldn't prosecute. How will AB 14 help people in the AG prevent that?
Excellent question. So we've been working on the California Disclose Act for a number of years, as you've heard, and made great progress. But one aspect of the original Disclose Act is already in law. The bill was SB 27, passed by then Senator Lou Correa, that requires any nonprofit organization that spends $50,000 or more on California campaigns to report as a campaign committee and report their secret donors onto the Secretary of State. So that came passed in 2014, and California, everywhere else in the country, that kind of hidden money from these 501c4 dark money nonprofits is skyrocketed. But in California, it actually stopped because there's no point they're hiding. They were going to be shown on the Secretary of State. So that's how they would find that information in the first place. Now we need to pass AB 14 to the California Disclose Act so that we see it on the ads where people, so they don't have to look at the Secretary of State website.
Would AB 14 stop the Koch brothers from doing what they did last time?
Yes, if there's provable earmarking, which there would be because they don't just give their money for nothing, then yes, they would have to show it.
You have another question?
In the state of California, this is only a California bill, it does not apply to congressional races, but once California leads, we can have the rest of the other states and the rest of the nation follow.
Hi, two things. I've collected over 300 signatures for the California Disclose Act by going to these rallies. I highly suggest you guys show up and get a couple of clipboards and ask. It's such low-hanging fruit. Anyway, I'm drilling down. How far down is enough? Like Greenpeace or the Chamber of Commerce? Do you go deeper than that, or is that where it stops?
It's the original source. Anybody that gives over $4,400 would be separated and considered potentially earmarked under this bill. Now, only the ones, it's only going to show the top 3 funders. We actually looked at top 5 funders before, and it's just too hard to read 5 on a TV ad where it's only for 5 seconds. So it's the top 3 funders. It's only the real biggest ones. But if somebody wrote a check, if Dave Koch or George Soros, for that matter, wrote a check to Greenpeace or the California Chamber of Commerce, whoever, and they said, hey, this money, we want it to kill this candidate or this proposition, then it would be covered.
Okay, hold on. Come on up, Terry.
Given Citizens United, are there any potential issues in the Disclose Act that might be jeopardized by constitutional questions?
Excellent question, and the answer is no, not so far. 8 out of the 9 justices in Citizens United actually said that the disclosure is good and important. They said you can spend unlimited money, which we wouldn't agree with, but they did say disclosure is good. In fact, there was a new recent ruling on the Supreme Court that verified that. So we believe that the disclosure is on safe, solid grounds. It's something we can do now, even with the Supreme Court.
Okay, this is Allison.
Hi. Would this apply to issue ads that don't directly reference the candidate or an initiative, but that touches on a subject matter that relates very closely to them?
Not this bill. Our original proposal would have, and we think that's something that needs to be addressed at some point, but AB 14 would apply to ballot measure ads and ads in support and opposition to candidates. So that'll be a follow-up step.
Okay, this is Karen.
I'm Karen, and this is a sample petition, and I want to know, so we go around and we find people willing to sign it, and then you give them to the legislators sorted by zip code? Is that how it works, or how does it work?
We give them in multiple, and speaking of which, our volunteers, why don't we actually have our volunteers pass around petitions on clipboard so that everybody can sign them. These paper petitions are extra. You guys have them, or they're already circulated. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, then great. The paper petitions are extra valuable for multiple reasons. One, we actually turn them into the legislative analysts at the elections committees, and they count them up and put them in the official legislative record. So they will show AB 14 has support from Voices for Progress and the California League of Conservation Voters and Common Cause and Clean Money and People Demanding Action and all these groups that co-sponsored this group. But it would also say, what we'd like it to say is, and 25,000 people signed petitions in support of this bill. So those paper petitions are going to that. We're already well above 12,000. So we're making really good progress, but we're looking to do more of that, and we're going to have trainings afterwards for signature gathering afterwards. So we'll do that. We'll actually also divide them up when we go into different key legislators, and say, hey, here are the 1,272 of your constituents that signed a petition for it also. So we're going to, and then we will also, when we have our lobby day, we will drop a giant stack of tens of thousands, because we also will ask people to sign online, and those are very important. When you get email messages from Trent Land, CA Clean Money, and other groups that do it, some of you may have gotten an email message or two from me before, sign those petitions, because they were carefully directed to send emails to your legislators or specific targets at specific times, and then we'll turn them all in at that time.
Okay, this is Susan?
Yes, it is. One of the questions I got hit with at a Dem Club meeting recently was one I couldn't answer. How will this be enforced, and what will be the penalty be if somebody violates it?
Thank you, Susan.
So the Fair Political Practices Commission is what enforces our current disclosure laws. They actually do a pretty good job of enforcing today's current disclosure laws. They have a subpoena ability, and they're pretty good at it. Their limitation is that the disclosure laws are kind of weak, and so they can get away with burying and fine. People can get away with burying and fine. So they'll enforce it. The penalty will be up to 3 times the cost of the ad. And so, you have a $3 million television ad, that's a $9 million penalty. So it's going to be quite substantial. Let's take one more question, then we're going to go on to our next part.
This is a very short question. On one page it says that one funder will be listed for robocalls and radio, and on another page it says 2. And I'm just wondering what is accurate.
It's actually 2, unless the disclosure would take longer than 8 seconds, then they only have to say 1. So, okay, so thank you, great questions. Now I'm just going to talk very briefly about the campaign, because those petitions are a really key part of it. That's how we got a vote of 60 to 15 last year on the last year's bill in the Assembly, and even got 9 Republicans to vote for it, and how we came within 1 vote on the Senate. So we're going to keep with those petitions. Our goals are to get over the whole course of the campaign, we would like to try to get 50,000 overall by the end of August, which is the end of the campaign, taking advantage of those rallies that Mike talked about, for instance, and all these big club meetings and all these things. We'll be having, after this, we were having our trainings and breakout sessions. One of them is signature gathering. We'll be talking about other ones. But first, I'm going to bring up to talk with all of you about our volunteer opportunities. You can sign up right now. I know not everybody can stay much after 3 o'clock. Let's give a round of applause to DeMarie Mulatieri, the Kickoff field organizer, who helps make this happen and doesn't work without it. Thank you.
Okay, well, it's so nice that you all came out today. California Clean Money Campaign is a totally volunteer-driven organization. The truth is that we cannot get this bill passed without you. So, give yourselves a round of applause and a pat on your back for being here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to enroll you all into the volunteer program with us, because we have a lot of work to do to ensure that this bill is passed this year so that it will take effect in 2018. Do you all want to see that happen? Yes. All right then. We purposely print these on gold because that's what you are worth to us. So I would like for you to begin by giving us your contact information. Please print in a legible manner so that we can read it. Okay, so give us your name. If you are affiliated with a group, please tell us that, as well as if you hold an office, give us your title, give us your address. That's very important because if we have an event in certain areas, then we'll be able to target the appropriate people to go to these events. Also, your cell phone. I don't know, how many of you got a reminder on your text today? Wasn't that great? Woo, I'm loving it. So please. We all get inundated with emails, and I'm guilty of it. I don't get to read them, my emails, but I do read my texts. So please, we don't bother you except when it's really, really important. Okay? All right, and then do give us your email. And all this information stays with California Clean Money Campaign. We do not share it with anybody else. It's confidential. And then, of course, sign. Okay? Tell us if you're a union member, if you own a business, or if you're an elected official. If you want to be listed on the website as a donor for Accountable Politics, go ahead and check that off. And also, we need you to tell us what it is that you really want to do. And of course, number one, primo, is gathering signatures. Signatures are so important because we use that as proof to the legislator that their constituents want disclosure. So please, sign the petitions. Also, when Trent sends on online requests, please fill out those petitions as well. You can do that. It's very easy because that's going to generate an email to your legislator. Making phone calls to supporters. We have to be able to reach the people who really want to help. But there's only Trent and myself. And we really need volunteers to do this. So please, if you'd like to be on the phone, you're calling people that are interested in helping the bill pass, please check that off. Entering support data. All the information that we collect needs to be put into our campaign file so that we can utilize it to contact people like yourselves who are willing to take action to help this bill pass. Becoming a speaker. Yes, this is very, very important. I know a lot of people think that they'd rather die than speak. However, I have got to tell you, once you do it and you get in front of people and you see them, you get addicted to it. All right? But just try it. You won't die. And we actually will have speakers training here today. Exercising leadership, organizing other volunteers. We have many, many times that we have to have people go out without Trent or myself, and that's where you get to step up as a leader. So if you want to be mentored in that, please tell us. Okay. Facebook Rapid Response Team. How many of you are on Facebook? Come on, all those hands, don't be shy. I know you're on there. Okay. So check that off if you're on Facebook. Trent will put up periodic, really important posts. He'll send you a link to it, and all you have to do is like, comment, share, and we get to trip up Facebook. Yes, I love it. Okay. Let's see. Attending hearings in Sacramento. Very, very important. It's coming up. First committee hearing is going to be next month, and we need to take you with us. Don't you want to go? Yes. If you've never been, this is like the most exciting thing. For me, it was more exciting, almost as exciting as having my children. Okay. Let's see. And let us know that it's okay for us to send you text alerts by checking off that box. Last but not least, I got 1 minute, 32 seconds. Okay. I need you to check off what days you're available to do phoning, and we will send you a very gentle reminder so you won't forget. So let us know when you're available. And if you do other things that you think would be very helpful to this campaign, you know, maybe you're a video guru or something like that, put that down, okay? And we will definitely call on you. And then again, groups that you belong to, tell us again, okay? As you can tell, groups are very important to networking, so let us know. So now I've got our, where's our interns? Hello, interns. Okay, good, all right. So please fill this out and then pass the forms to the outside of your, of the aisle, okay? And the interns will pick it up. So just fill it out and just keep passing it down, and they will be scouring the area to pick it up. Thank you. Please come work with us. We need you. We're going to do it this year.